I was 58 years old when I found the second phone. It was tucked behind the driver's seat of his truck, wedged between the leather and the console where I'd dropped my sunglasses. The screen was lit up with a text message from someone saved as home. The message read, "Don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons tonight at 7. I laid out your blue shirt. Love you. See you soon." I stared at that screen for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 30 seconds. My hands started shaking. Because you see, I was home. I was the person who laid out his shirts. I was the one who made dinner plans with our friends. Or so I thought. That was the moment my entire life shattered into a million pieces. 12 years of what I believed was marriage. 12 years of building a life together. 12 years of being someone's wife. Except I wasn't his wife at all. My name is Diane Sullivan, and this is the true story of how I discovered I'd been living a complete lie. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand who I was. I wasn't some naive young girl. I was a grown woman, a registered nurse for 32 years, someone who prided herself on being practical and no nonsense. I'd been married before, divorced for 8 years when I met him. I had 2 adult children, 3 grandchildren, a mortgage I'd paid off, and a life I'd built by myself. I thought I knew better. I thought I was too smart, too experienced, too careful to ever be fooled. I was wrong. I met James Mitchell at a hospital charity fundraiser in the spring of 2012. I was 46 and he was 52. He was distinguished looking, with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes. He worked in medical equipment sales, which is why he was at the event. We struck up a conversation about the rubber chicken dinner they were serving, and he made me laugh for the first time in months. He asked for my number. I gave it to him. He called the next day. We went to dinner that weekend. He was attentive, interesting, and interested in me. He asked about my kids, my work, my dreams. He didn't play games. He didn't wait 3 days to text back. He seemed like a grown man who knew what he wanted. Within 3 months, we were serious. Within 6 months, he was staying at my house 4 or 5 nights a week. He kept some work clothes in my closet. His toothbrush sat next to mine in the bathroom. We'd go grocery shopping together on Sundays, and he'd push the cart while I checked my list. It felt normal. It felt right. It felt like love. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Diane, didn't you wonder why he didn't spend every night with you? Didn't you question where he was going? Of course I did, I asked. And he had answers. Answers that made perfect sense at the time. James told me he was going through a difficult divorce. His wife, he said, had left him 2 years before we met. They were separated, living apart, but the divorce was complicated because of their assets. He owned his own business before switching to medical sales, and there were properties to divide, retirement accounts to split. These things take time, he said. His lawyer advised him to wait. He still owned a house that was in the settlement negotiations, he explained. He stayed there sometimes to maintain it, to make sure the pipes didn't freeze in winter, to keep up appearances for the divorce proceedings. His lawyer said it would look better if he didn't completely abandon the marital home. And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He showed me papers with lawyer letterheads. He complained about his ex-wife's attorney. He talked about mediation sessions that never seemed to go anywhere. Once he even had me talk to someone he said was his lawyer on speakerphone. The man confirmed everything James had told me. I found out later that was his business partner, Steve, doing him a favor. Despite the complications with his divorce, our relationship deepened. We celebrated holidays together. He spent Thanksgiving with me and my kids. We took a cruise to Alaska in our 2nd year together. We talked about our future, about selling both our houses and buying something together once his divorce was final. In year 3, he proposed. It was nothing fancy. We were having dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant, the one where we'd had our first date. He reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "Diane, I don't want to wait anymore. I love you. Will you marry me?" I said yes. He slipped a beautiful diamond ring on my finger. It was everything I'd ever wanted, at a time in my life when I'd stopped expecting fairy tales. We couldn't have a legal marriage, he explained, not until the divorce was final. But we could have a commitment ceremony. We could declare our love in front of the people who mattered. We could be married in every way that counted, and that's what we did. On a sunny Saturday in October 2015, we had our ceremony in my backyard. My sister helped me plan it. My daughter was my maid of honor. My son walked me down the makeshift aisle. We had about 40 people there, mostly my friends and family and a handful of his colleagues from work. I wore a tea-length cream dress. He wore a navy suit. A friend who was ordained online performed the ceremony. We exchanged rings and vows. I promised to love him in sickness and in health. He promised to cherish me all the days of his life. We cut a cake. We danced to Unforgettable. People toasted us with champagne and wished us well. It felt real because to me, it was real. I didn't notice that none of his family was there. He told me he was estranged from them, that they'd sided with his ex-wife during the separation. I didn't find it strange that his phone rang several times during the reception and he stepped away to answer. Work calls, he said. Medical sales didn't stop for weekends. I was too happy to question anything. I was a bride, even if not in the legal sense. I was loved. I was chosen. I was someone's wife. I kept telling myself the legal paperwork would come later. The real marriage certificate would come later, once the divorce was final. But there was no divorce. There never had been. Life went on. We settled into our routine. He stayed at my house 4 or 5 nights a week, sometimes 6, but never 7. There was always a reason he needed to go back to his place, the house that needed maintenance, the business paperwork at his home office, the early meetings that were closer to his address. I worked my nursing shifts, and he worked his sales territory. We'd meet for lunch when our schedules aligned. We'd grocery shop and watch movies and argue about whether to paint the living room blue or gray. We lived like any married couple, except we didn't share the same address every single night. My kids called him their stepdad. My grandchildren called him Papa Jim. My friends referred to him as my husband. He referred to me as his wife. He remembered my birthday every year. He bought me thoughtful Christmas gifts. When my mother died in 2018, he held me while I cried and helped me plan the funeral. When I had to have surgery for a herniated disc, he took time off work to drive me to appointments. These weren't the actions of a man living a double life. These were the actions of a devoted partner. Or so I thought. There were little things, though. Little things I explained away. He never wanted to go on vacation during certain weeks. He said it was busy season at work. He'd sometimes silence his phone during dinner and check it compulsively in the bathroom. He said his boss was demanding. Once, I suggested we take a long weekend to visit my college roommate in Phoenix, and he got agitated, saying he couldn't just pick up and leave without planning. But everyone has quirks, right? Everyone has complicated work situations. I'd been married before. I knew that no relationship was perfect. I pushed the little doubts away. I focused on the good, and there was so much good, until there wasn't. That October day in 2024 started like any other day. I'd worked a 12-hour shift at the hospital, and I was exhausted. James had stayed at my house the night before, but he'd left early for a meeting. He'd kissed me goodbye while I was still half asleep, told me he'd see me that evening. Around 3 in the afternoon, he texted me, "Can I borrow your car? Truck is making a weird noise. Don't want to risk the drive to Springfield." I texted back, "Sure, I'm off at 7. Keys are in my purse." He picked up my car from the hospital parking lot and I drove his truck home. That's when my sunglasses fell. That's when I reached down to get them. That's when I found the phone. I sat in his truck in my driveway for 20 minutes just staring at that phone. The screen had gone dark, but I could still see the message notification. I pressed the button and it lit up again. Home had sent another message. "Also, your sister called. She wants to know if we're coming to Thanksgiving this year." His sister. The sister he said he was estranged from. My fingers moved before my brain could stop them. I swiped up and the phone unlocked. No password, maybe because he never expected anyone to find it. The messages with home went back years. Years. They were domestic and mundane and devastating. "Don't forget to pick up milk. The yard guy is coming Tuesday. Love you. Drive safe. Happy anniversary to my wonderful husband." Anniversary. Anniversary. The word punched me in the stomach. I scrolled up, through thousands of messages, plans for Christmas, discussions about refinancing the mortgage, a conversation about their daughter's wedding. Their daughter. He had a daughter. I opened the photos. There he was in picture after picture, at family gatherings, holiday dinners, graduation parties, his arm around a woman with short blonde hair and a warm smile, his real wife, Patricia, Patty. There were pictures from last month, last week, yesterday. In one photo, they were standing in front of a Christmas tree, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling at the camera. The caption read, 35 years with my best friend. 35 years. I did the math in my head. We'd been together for 12 years. Subtract 12 from 35. He'd been married for 23 years when he met me. He'd been married for 35 years now. There was no divorce. There had never been a divorce. There had never even been a separation. I wasn't his wife. I was his mistress, and I didn't even know it. I don't remember walking into my house. I don't remember sitting down at my kitchen table. I just remember the rage. It wasn't hot rage. It was ice-cold fury that made my hands steady and my mind crystal clear. I looked at that phone again. I went to the contacts. Home was Patricia Mitchell. I found the address in his navigation history. They lived 23 miles from me in the next town over, a nice neighborhood with mature trees and well-kept lawns. I'd driven through it 100 times, never knowing my husband had a whole other life there. I thought about all the nights he'd left my house, telling me he had to go maintain his property or get paperwork from his home office. He was going home to her, to his real home, to his real wife. I thought about our wedding, about how I'd promised to love him forever in front of everyone I cared about how I'd felt so lucky, so blessed, so grateful for a second chance at love. It was all a lie. Every kiss was a lie. Every I love you was a lie. Every moment of intimacy, every shared dream, every plan for the future was built on a foundation of deception so massive I couldn't comprehend it. He'd stolen 12 years of my life. 12 years I could have spent finding real love with someone honest. 12 years I could have spent building an authentic partnership. Instead, I'd been living in a fantasy, a carefully constructed facade, while he went home to his real life every other night. The rage crystallized into something else. Determination. I looked at Patricia's number on his phone. My hand hovered over it for a long moment. Then I called from my own phone. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Her voice was pleasant, unsuspecting. She had no idea her entire world was about to implode just as mine had. Is this Patricia Mitchell? I asked. Yes, this is Patty. Who's calling? I took a breath. My name is Diane Sullivan. I'm calling because I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay on the line and listen to me. Can you do that? There was a pause. Okay. Is this about James? Is he hurt? Did something happen? He's not hurt, I said. But something did happen. For the past 12 years, I've been in a relationship with your husband. We've been living as a married couple. We had a wedding ceremony. I thought he was divorced. I thought I was his wife. Silence. Complete silence. I could hear her breathing. I found a phone in his truck today, I continued. Your phone messages to him. Photos of you together. I didn't know you existed until an hour ago. I need you to understand that I didn't know he was married. I would never knowingly be with someone else's husband, but I've been with him for 12 years, and I thought he was mine. More silence. Then, in a voice that was barely a whisper, You're lying. I'm not lying, I said. I wish I were. I can prove everything I'm saying. We had a commitment ceremony on October 10th, 2015. He stays at my house 4 or 5 nights a week. My address is 2847 Maple Drive. You can look me up. You can see my Facebook page. There are pictures of us together. This can't be real, she said, but her voice was shaking now. We've been married for 35 years. We have dinner together every night he's not traveling for work. We just celebrated our anniversary. He's traveling for work right now. He travels a lot for medical sales. He's not traveling, I said quietly. He's at my house, or he was. He left this morning. He told me he'd see me tonight. I heard a sound that might have been a sob. Prove it. Prove what you're saying. What's his favorite restaurant? I asked. Angelo's Italian. My heart sank. That's our place too, our favorite place, where we had our first date. Oh my God, she breathed. Oh my God, oh my God. We sat in silence for a moment, two women whose lives had just been destroyed by the same man. I think we need to meet, I finally said, and I think we need to confront him together. Are you willing to do that? Where is he right now? She asked, her voice harder now. I don't know, I said, but I know where he'll be, tomorrow. He has a regional sales meeting at the Midwest Medical Supply headquarters. It starts at 10 in the morning. I know that building, she said. He's worked with them for years. Then I'll meet you there, I said. 9:45 in the parking lot. I'll be there, she said. And Diane, thank you for calling me. I know that took courage. We both deserve better than this, I said. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen as the evening light faded. I didn't cry. I was beyond tears. I was in the place past shock, past heartbreak, in the cold, clear space where you know exactly what needs to be done. I didn't sleep that night. I packed up every single thing James had ever left at my house. His clothes, his toiletries, the shoes he kept by the door, the phone charger on the nightstand. I put it all in garbage bags. I took off the rings he'd given me and put them in an envelope. By morning, I was exhausted but resolute. I arrived at the Midwest Medical Supply headquarters at 9:30. It was a crisp autumn day, the kind of day that felt wrong for everything that was about to happen. The parking lot was already filling up with cars, salespeople in business casual carrying coffee cups and briefcases. At 9:40, a silver sedan pulled up next to my car. The woman who got out was petite, blonde, attractive. She looked younger than 57, though her eyes were red and swollen. Patricia. We looked at each other for a long moment. Then she walked over to my car and I got out. Diane? She asked. Patty. We didn't hug. We didn't know each other. We were united only by betrayal. Did you confront him? She asked. No, I said. I thought we should do it together. Did you? She shook her head. He came home last night like nothing was wrong. We watched television. He fell asleep on the couch. I couldn't even look at him. This morning he left for this meeting. He kissed me goodbye. Her voice broke. He kissed me goodbye like he always does. I handed her James's phone. I brought this. She took it, scrolled through the messages, the photos. Her hands were shaking. 35 years, she said. We have 3 children, 5 grandchildren. We've built an entire life together, and he's been doing this? I have 2 children, I said, 3 grandchildren. They call him Papa Jim. She looked up at me with devastation in her eyes. How do we do this? We walk in there, I said, and we show him that he can't do this to people, that actions have consequences. We walked into the building together, side by side. 2 women in our late 50s, one in jeans and a blazer, one in slacks and a cardigan. The receptionist looked up. We're here for James Mitchell, I said. Is he in the conference room? The sales meeting? Yes, but it's about to start. Can I tell him who's... We'll tell him ourselves, Patricia said. We walked past the receptionist before she could stop us, following the signs, to the conference room. Through the glass door, we could see about 20 people sitting around a large table. James was near the head of the table, laughing at something a colleague had said. I opened the door. 20 heads turned toward us. James's smile froze on his face. I watched the color drain from his skin as he saw us standing there together, me and Patricia, united in our purpose. Hello, James, I said, my voice calm and clear. Diane, what are you... He stood up, his chair scraping backward. Hello, honey, Patricia said, stepping forward. Surprise. The room went completely silent. James looked between us, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I think your coworkers should know who you really are, I said. For 12 years you've been living with me. We had a wedding ceremony. You told me you were divorced. And for 35 years, Patricia added, her voice shaking but strong. You've been married to me, living in our home, sleeping in our bed, spending holidays with our children. Ladies, please, James stammered. This is not the place. There is no right place for this conversation, I said. But we're having it anyway. You've been lying to both of us, playing us both for fools, living two separate lives like it was nothing. How many work trips? Patricia asked. How many times did you tell me you were traveling for sales when you were really at her house? How many family emergencies? I added. How many times did you leave my house saying you had to handle something at your property when you were really going home to her? James's boss, a man in a gray suit at the head of the table, stood up. Mitchell, is this true? James opened his mouth, but no words came out. It's true, I said. And he used company trips as cover. Check his expense reports. I bet you'll find some interesting discrepancies. We'll discuss this in my office, the boss said, his voice tight. Meeting dismissed. The other salespeople gathered their things in awkward silence, avoiding James's eyes as they filed out. Within 2 minutes, the conference room held only the four of us, me, Patricia, James, and his boss. I can explain, James finally said. Don't, Patricia said, holding up her hand. There is no explanation that makes this acceptable. None. I never meant to hurt either of you, he said, and the audacity of it, the sheer audacity, made me laugh. You never meant to hurt us? I said. You built an entire second life. You married me in front of my family. You've spent 12 years lying to both of us every single day. What did you think would happen? How long did you plan to keep this going? I don't know, he said quietly. I don't know. It started, and then I didn't know how to stop it. I loved you both. You don't love us, Patricia said. You don't treat people you love like this. His boss cleared his throat. Mr. Mitchell, you're suspended pending an investigation. If we find you've been falsifying expense reports or using company resources to facilitate this, you'll be terminated. Leave the building immediately. James looked between us one more time. Please, he said. Can we talk about this privately? No, Patricia and I said in unison. We walked out together, leaving him standing there. We didn't look back. In the parking lot, Patricia and I stood by our cars, suddenly awkward now that the adrenaline was fading. What now? She asked. Now you go home and call a lawyer, I said. File for divorce. Take him for everything he's got. What about you? I shrugged. I was never really married to him, so I don't get the satisfaction of divorcing him. But I get the satisfaction of knowing he can't do this anymore. Not to us. Not to anyone else. Will you be okay? She asked, and the genuine concern in her voice almost broke me. Eventually, I said. Will you? Eventually, she echoed. We exchanged phone numbers, not because we wanted to be friends, not because we could ever really move past the strange, horrible connection we shared, but because we were the only two people in the world who truly understood what the other had lost. Thank you for calling me, Patricia said. If you hadn't, I might never have known. We both deserved to know the truth, I said. She got in her car and drove away. I sat in mine for a long time, watching the building where James had just lost his job, his reputation, and any shred of dignity he might have had left. My phone buzzed. It was a text from him. Please, Diane, let me explain. I deleted it. Then I blocked his number. I drove home to my empty house, the house where I'd built a life with a man who didn't exist, the house that was mine, all mine, and always had been. I called my daughter. Honey, I said when she answered, I need to tell you something about James. That was 6 weeks ago. In that time, I've learned a few things. Patricia did file for divorce. She's taking him for everything as she should. The house, half the retirement accounts, alimony. She told me on the phone last week that their children won't speak to him. Their oldest daughter called him a stranger. Their son asked him how he could do this to their mother. James lost his job. The investigation found that he'd been manipulating his expense reports for years, claiming business trips that didn't exist, using company funds for personal expenses. They could probably prosecute him if they wanted to, but they settled for termination instead. He tried to contact me 17 times in the first week. Calls, texts, emails. Then he showed up at my house. I called the police. I got a restraining order. I told him through my lawyer that if he ever came near me again, I'd make sure everyone in his life knew exactly what he'd done. I haven't heard from him since. My kids were devastated. My daughter cried for hours. My son wanted to drive to James's apartment and teach him a lesson. I told him the best revenge was to move forward with dignity, to not let James's lies turn us into something we're not. My grandchildren asked where Papa Jim went. I told them the truth, in age-appropriate language, that sometimes adults make very bad choices, and Papa Jim made choices that hurt our family, so he can't be part of our lives anymore. I went to therapy. I'm still going to therapy. I needed someone to help me understand how this happened, how I'd been fooled so completely. My therapist says that predators like James are skilled manipulators. They're experts at creating believable lies, at being exactly what you need them to be. It wasn't my fault that I believed him. Some days I believe that, some days I don't. I look back at those 12 years and try to figure out what was real. Were any of the moments genuine? Did he actually love me, or was I just a convenient second option? Was I just an escape from his real life? I don't know. I'll probably never know. What I do know is this. I'm 58 years old and I'm starting over again. I'm rebuilding my life. I'm learning to trust my judgment again. I'm figuring out who I am without him. It's hard. Some mornings I wake up and forget for just a second that he's gone, that it was all a lie. Then reality crashes back and I have to remind myself that the man I loved never really existed. But I'm here. I'm surviving. I have my children and my grandchildren. I have my career. I have my home. I have my integrity, which is more than James Mitchell has. Patricia and I talk occasionally. Brief conversations, usually just checking in. We'll never be close friends. How could we be? We're forever connected by the worst experience of our lives. But there's a strange comfort in knowing someone else understands exactly what this feels like. Last week, I went to Angelo's Italian for the first time since I found the phone. I sat at a table by myself and ordered the chicken marsala. It wasn't easy. The memories were everywhere. But I refused to let him take that place from me. I refused to let him take anything else. The truth is, I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm humiliated. 58 years old, and I was the other woman without even knowing it. How do you come back from that? How do you trust anyone again? I don't have those answers yet. Maybe I never will. But I'm here, and I'm telling this story because maybe someone else needs to hear it. Maybe there's another woman out there who's seeing the signs but explaining them away. Maybe there's someone else who needs to know that it's okay to ask questions, to demand answers, to trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And maybe there's someone who needs to know that you can survive this, that even when your entire world shatters, even when everything you believe turns out to be a lie, you can pick up the pieces and rebuild. It won't be the same. It won't ever be the same. But it can still be good. It can still be yours. It can still be real. James Mitchell stole 12 years of my life. He doesn't get to steal my future, too. I'm Diane Sullivan. I was a wife, then a fool, and now I'm just a woman who's learning to be herself again. Some days that's enough, and someday I hope it will be more than enough. If you found this story powerful, understand that somewhere tonight there's a woman living the same lie I lived. There's someone who trusts completely, who believes in the love they've built, who has no idea their entire life is a carefully constructed facade. The signs were there. I see them now, in hindsight. The nights away, the protected phone, the friends and family who never materialized, the way he always controlled the narrative, but I didn't see them then because I didn't want to see them, because I was happy, because questioning meant risking everything I'd built. I learned the hardest way possible that it's better to ask the hard questions. It's better to demand the truth. It's better to be alone than to be unknowingly sharing someone you love with a life you don't even know exists. To Patricia, wherever you are tonight, I hope you're healing. I hope you're finding yourself again. I hope you know that none of this was your fault. And to anyone watching who sees themselves in this story, trust your instincts. Ask the questions. Demand the truth. You deserve more than half a life with someone who's living a double one. I'm Diane Sullivan, and I survived being the mistress I never knew I was. And you can survive too.